Welcome back, Mathletes. We're here in Dr. Math Studios. We're recording live in front of a live studio audience. Our phone lines are open at 1-800-MATH with Dr. Math. And today, we're flexing all over exponent rules. Let's take a look. All right, Mathletes, so let's handle these exponents. So notice, we have a list of exponent rules here. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down this list in order, and I'm going to give you examples of how to use them, and you're going to see, all right, they're not so bad. In addition, I want this to make sense to you. All right, so let's dive in here, and let's begin with the first one, the product rule. All right, so the product rule, what we're seeing here is that, notice, the bases have to be the same. And not only do they have to be the same, but this a value, whatever the base is, cannot be 0, all right? So what I have here for your example is they said, okay, these bases are the same, they're both 2, and they have different exponents. So here, we know that 2 squared is really the same thing as 2 times 2, right? So that is this guy right here. And then for the next one, we have 2 cubed. So we have 2 times 2 times 2. So we have 2 times 2 times 2. And notice, they're all being multiplied. And when I use that little dot there, in case you're not familiar with this notation, this is just another way of saying times. And the reason I'm going to get away from these signs is because later on, I don't want to confuse myself, especially when we're dealing with the variable x, all right? So this is what we have. So notice, how many 2's do we have? Well, how many 2's are being multiplied? So we have the same base of 2. And if you notice, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So another way of writing this in exponent notation is 2 to the 5th power, right? That would be the long way of doing it, but I want it to make sense, right? And so this is the idea behind the scenes. But if I wanted to use these definitions, right, that are going to help us save so much time, look what it tells us to do. When the bases are the same and you're multiplying, right, you take the first exponent and you add it to the second exponent. So all we're doing when we have a straight up multiplication is you add the exponents. All right, so we add the exponents. So all we could have done to save time, because time is money, is you take this exponent 2 and add it to this exponent 3. 2 plus 3, boom. That's what gives us the 5. So that's what this rule is telling us in English. Because I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I'll look at these definitions from the textbook and I leave class more confused than I started. So that's what it's telling us there. But notice, we could go a little bit further, right? Because as you move on in math, some of you are seeing expressions, right, being raised to different powers. But notice, even though this looks a little bit more complicated, you still have the same base, because as you know, it's all about that base, about that base. So the base is 3x, and what did we say we're gonna do with those exponents? Boom, we add them. So 2 plus 3 gives us that 5. So again, this is another way of a much faster way of multiplying. And you're gonna see as you move through your course of how this is gonna be beneficial. All right, and before we move on to the quotient rule, let me just do, as you move on and get further along your math careers, as we just said, right, you're gonna see problems that might look like this. And you're like, well, what am I gonna use that for? Don't worry, it's all about understanding, right? It all starts with the base, the understanding, and then you continue on and you're gonna see how helpful these properties are. So these properties aren't going away, you're just gonna see them in different places in math, right? So if we notice, if we're very careful, we notice they have the same base. So we just said, when they have the same base, you add the exponents. So we end up here with x plus y raised to the 5th power. Boom. So again, nothing changed. These rules are always going to stay the same. Excellent. So if you got that down, follow me to the next slide. All right, so let's get some examples using the quotient rule. So the quotient rule tells us this: when we have the same base, right? So when we have the same base and now we're dividing, right? So let me break it down to show you why this works. So the reason why this works is look upstairs. Now we have 5 5s, right? 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Okay, good. And then on the bottom, we have 3 5s. 5 times 5 times 5. And just using our multiplication and division rules, we know from our classes that we're allowed to cancel, right? Because 5 divided by 5, that leaves us with 1. Excellent. Then we have this 5 and this 5, they cancel out and leaves us with 1. And then these 5s and these 5s cancel out, and I just start canceling all over the place. Be careful, right? So notice after all your cancellation, right? After you start canceling your cable, your car payment, no. After you start canceling, what you notice is how many 5s are you left with? Boom. We're only left with these 2 5s here. So we're left with 5 squared. So again, this is a long way to do it, but it makes sense, right? The idea makes sense. So let's save us some time. Let's look at what this quotient rule is telling us. When you're dividing and you have the same base, right? When you're dividing and you have the same base, look what you do with the exponents. It's always the exponent in the numerator, right? The top, minus the exponent in the denominator, that bottom one. So 5 minus 3 leaves us with 2. What people like, you got to be careful because people confuse this all the time. And let's say I switch these two numbers. I put the 3 on top and the 5 on bottom. A lot of people will do the 5 minus 3 still. They take the bigger one minus the smaller one. No, the rules never change. It's always the top minus the bottom. Don't forget that. All right. Oh, we could finish this off. That's just 25. All right. Again, as you get to different math classes, right, you might end up with things that look a little bit more complicated, but the ideas are still the same. So our base is x minus y plus r, and then same thing. As long as you notice that the bases are the same, if the bases are the same, you could apply these properties. And this property tells us, oh, I take the top exponent and subtract the bottom exponent from it. So the base stays the same, just like we said. I'll write it right here. X minus y plus r. And we just take that top exponent minus the bottom exponent. So 5 minus 3, and leaves us with 2. And we are done. And again, these are tools to help you either solve problems, simplify expressions. You're gonna do so much with these rules right here. All right, and for this video, what we're gonna do is, I don't wanna overwhelm you, so we'll do 3 in this video, and if we get enough likes, enough support, we'll do 3 more using some other properties, and I'll let you guys decide, all right? So let's do one more. Let's go with the power rule. That's a famous one. All right, so let's use that power rule. All right, so let's do an example here. Let's get 2 to the 3rd power, and let's raise it to the 5th power. So according to our power rule, when you have an exponent raised to an exponent, you have a power raised to the power, right? What it says is all we do is you multiply those exponents. So we end up with 2 raised to the 15th power. So that's what the power rule allows us to do. And it's gonna be really helpful, especially as we start combining a lot of these rules, right? You're gonna see how this is gonna save you a lot of time later on. But again, before we get there, we wanna make sure that we understand this base. You understand all these properties here. And that's what we're doing. Because before you go beast mode, right, you gotta learn how to walk. All right, and then again, we could take this to any example. Let's go with x to the 5th power, and then I'm going to cube that. So again, what this property allows us to do is this simply allows us to multiply those exponents. And there you have it. So what we've looked at so far is our product rule, our quotient rule, and our power rule, right? Those 3 rules alone are very powerful in math. But again, make sure you like, subscribe, get those thumbs up, and we'll continue the march and we'll look at those other properties too if you want it. All right, folks, we'll see you all next time. Peace.